Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Major. I'm the host of the Majoration Podcast, and as always, I bring you great guests. Just to know a little bit about this podcast, well, we'll talk about things that are inspirational, aspirational, and motivational. And I couldn't think of a better guest to have on the show than my brother John today. John is the founder of Viral App Launch, which was amazing because I read about that. Over 1 million users in 6 months, right? He was able to get 6 million users. I mean, 1 million users in 6 months. You're also the CEO of the what is the Sigma Society,
Society.
which is a
Yep.
Dan Bilzerian, which I want to talk about that Dan Bilzerian company. That's pretty awesome.
hmm
One of the first things I want to ask you out the gate, though, welcome to the show, the Major Motivation Podcast. Happy to have you on.
Thank you so
As
much
you
for
know,
having me, Major.
as you know, I want to respect your time. I want to jump right into it. Out the gate, I want to talk about being a tech founder. I know a lot of people that follow me are entrepreneurs, people that are in the tech industry. And as a two-time tech founder that has raised over $9 million, I would like for you to talk about how that process began and also some of the challenges that you face in the beginning when it comes to being a tech founder, because I'm in the tech world too, and I know it could be some pitfalls, right?
Yeah. Being a tech founder is definitely a difficult job. It's not something I would wish on anyone else, not even on my worst enemy, right? But yeah, so the first company I founded, I tried to bootstrap it, right? So I got both sides of the coin in terms of that experience. I did it, I made a fitness app that gives you rewards for working out. I actually, worked up the ranks, eventually got in front of Kevin Hart with it and got him to agree to invest. And that deal eventually fell apart once it went to legal because he was already endorsing Nike Run at the time. But I got to contrast that experience of being a founder that was bootstrapping it using my own money, and then going into a more institutional environment where I partnered with some investment bankers, and they did a reverse merger and acquired a company. So it's like a SPAC, so it went public. And so we raised money on that public company. So there's just, it's a totally different approach coming from the top and going into the business rather than like bootstrapping it up from the bottom. And both have their pros and cons. I will definitely say though, like, when you raise millions of dollars, you have a lot more flexibility. You can kind of like see through all your dreams for the company really effectively. And so that process, in order to raise that money, we had to, of course, put together decks and put together projections and comps or, comparable businesses that were already in market, were on NASDAQ and stuff like that. And I will also say, like, when you got that kind of money you're dealing with, there's a lot of sharks at that level, right? So you can't be Mr. Nice Guy. You really have to be really firm and have an edge, because you will definitely get knocked around a bit. And so in that experience, they wanted us to grow the platform as quick as possible, understandably, so that they got uplist on the NASDAQ because it was on the OTC markets, which is like a smaller, it's like a junior version of the public markets. But that going through that rigor was very new to me. Being the CEO of a public company was also new to me. I had like 1,200 investors that I was dealing with day to day. These guys are messaging you on Instagram, messaging you on email. They're creating groups about you. They're following your whole life, how you spend your money, everything that you do, your family life, everything. So it's a bit of an intrusive experience, but at the same time, it's one of my most proud things, because not only did we do something that I would consider pretty large scale, but also like you can just imagine the kind of learnings that come through an experience like that.
I think that experience is one of the most valuable teachers, in any industry, that you're a part of. If someone that was in the tech industry, if they are an inspiring entrepreneur, are there like two or three gems that you could share with them about that process? Although, you expressly said I wouldn't wish that on anyone, and I get that. But if they're bold enough and stubborn enough to go and bump their head on their own, what are like two or three, you know, landmines that they should be aware of in doing so?
Yeah, I think the two biggest learnings that I took from that experience, having done the dirt and then also done the like the more glamorous side with the capital raising, when I did the dirt, when I did it from the ground up, the biggest lesson that I learned is you have to monetize your app, right? Like you have to start making money on the business. A lot of Silicon Valley, these other kind of influences in the world will push you to just grow your app, get as many users as you can, et cetera. But I mean, you can only fund that for so long. It's much easier if you have the users funding your growth, right? Like people paying to patronize your platform. And so that was one of the biggest mistakes that I made, was not monetizing my app fast enough. So that's something that kind of like, somebody who's starting out and thinking about, hey, is this app worth enough that people be willing to pay for it? If it's not, you should be questioning the value of what you're bringing to the table. So that was definitely something that I would have definitely done differently. And then when it came to the more macro side of running like a larger business and having a lot higher stakes, thousands of investors, millions of dollars that I was, responsible for overseeing in a responsible way, and being a fiduciary for that money, and being a custodian for, you know, thousands of different investors' money, is just like, you really have to, like you said, be hard headed, and be like firm enough that you're going to have conviction, because you're going to be facing so many headwinds and opposing forces. Like, when you got investors, like everyone's trying to pull you in different directions. And so all you've done is signed up to have thousands of new bosses who are trying to pull you in these different directions. And I think they have authority over you because they've invested in you. And to some extent, they do have some authority over you. That's what happens when you take money from people, is you're subject to their whims to some extent. Whether you take sponsors on your podcast, like if your sponsor says, hey, you can't talk about this topic, what drew me to you in the first place was you're running for the California candidacy for the governor. And that really inspired me. And I think for a lot of politicians, they want to fund their campaign, but then they are going to be at the whims, or they're going to be influenced to speak about certain things, talk about certain things, and not talk about others. And so, just understand that if you're going to bring on investors, they're going to be presenting you with the same moral dilemma, I will say. And that's why generally I'm a believer in actually going the bootstrap route these days. I think, founders who want to create a startup should focus on building a solid product that just solves the main problem, and then get enough users. We shoot for 10,000 users to make sure that we have statistically significant data to prove that business case. 10,000 users, like you can make estimations in percentages at that point. So, if it works at a small level, it's going to work at a large level. And then lastly, once you have the business model really stabilized and solidified, then you can bring investors in, because you have a lot stronger footing as a founder at that point.
When it comes to like the consulting side of it, in regards to the businesses that you do now, and I seen you work with influencers as well. How has that process been, a tech startup founder, and you're approaching certain influencers? Because, I've spoken to people in different rooms, and sometimes it's a breeze and sometimes it's really hard. But one of the things that I tell people, John, is that if you have, community, that's helpful, right? If you foster great relationships, all those things are helpful. How did you get to 1 million users in 6 months? What was that process like for you?
Yeah, so to get to 1 million users in 6 months, we enrolled 15 influencers. All of them had over 1 million followers. But it was different because we had the capital to pay them. So
Mm.
if you're an entrepreneur starting out, it's a lot different. So you got to create the right incentives so that they want to work for you. So what I typically recommend that people do, if you want influencers to work for you, it's either offer them a little, like if you're selling something, offer them a little percentage of the purchase and give them some incentive to, post about it and to get you customers. Or if they're, if you got a tech startup and you want to get users to the platform, encourage them to, you can create like a common share equity pool, and they can get dilutable shares that are low value, but they can earn more of them the more they help your business out. That way you don't have to pay influencers out of pocket. That's kind of like how I would look at it in like a technical sense. But, ever since like becoming friends with Dan Bilzerian and working on this company, he and I started getting into business last year about this time. And so we've been building and launching a company, and we launched in August that did multiple six figures in its first month. It's on track for 7 figures a month shortly here. And uh, the affiliation of being with somebody who has so much influence, for better or for worse, right? Like no matter where you stand on the guy, whether you like him or you hate him, it has created incredible opportunities for me as a person, because now people look at this person as in the same category, right? So you get that kind of halo effect. And so I think that's one of the things that you've done well yourself, Major, is like you've aligned yourself with people who are going to add to your credibility and who are going to validate your worth and your contribution and who you are and your ethics and all of that. So I definitely say like your network is your net worth. I would definitely be, even if I was a founder who was putting in 12-hour days, working on a company, I would still make time to go network, still make time to host events and bring people out, and always take that opportunity if the door opens to meet like a celebrity or somebody like that, because just by the very nature of being affiliated, it's going to make your life a lot easier. I'm not going to lie. It opened a lot of doors.
I come from a long background of indirectly doing that, subconsciously. So even in sports, I aligned myself with my cousin that played for the Clippers for 7 years. Doing that, I was cutting NBA players' hair, and then I brought them marketing opportunities, and then I was able to sell my wife's art work for 30,000 and 50,000 on art piece. So it's all about proximity and using that leverage as an opportunity. And the way that I do it very naturally, right? And I'm always looking to be of service. That's the thing about it. I don't go into situations like give me, give me, give me. I present certain things that I think that'd be valuable for either both of us or may be helpful for the other person. And I think that is what has allowed me to be successful. And thinking about what you're doing now as a CEO of the Sigma Society, how does that translate to the things you've done in the past as far as your successes and failures? What have you been able to apply to this to have that success? And in addition to having his missed as well, that's very helpful. But what are some of the things that you have felt like you have applied to add to the success you've had early on?
One of my most curious reflections, my personal reflections, is like I thought I was cool. I thought I was hot shit when I, first had a little bit of success. My team and I, we came into contact with TikTok when they were first getting big in 2019. We ended up launching their app through our agency, and we worked with them for 2, 3 years. We did multi-millions in revenue with that one engagement, and I thought I was hot shit after that. And then when I went to work with Dan and the guys, like I got completely humbled. I've got all the responsibility on me, and it's a completely different work environment, completely different type of people, completely different expectations. And so I think just like putting your ego at the door, like no matter what door you're at, like that was a big thing for me, was just like owning that I wasn't as cool as I thought I was. I wasn't as successful as I thought I was. These guys with a much, you know, bigger pocketbook, much faster car, much bigger house, whatever, right? So definitely don't let the ego get out ahead of you. And I like how you said you frame things in the way of just like, how can I contribute value? How can I be of service to this person? I think that's just an altruistic approach that's always going to garner you good results. And even if it's altruistic, it's got its selfish benefits, right? Like it's going to benefit you. And so, yeah, I definitely got my ass handed to me in this engagement. I've been putting in 12-hour days for over a year now, and I got no shame in it. I'm really proud of it. It really helped develop my character in terms of being able to speak up for myself, having conviction in everything that I say, because these guys, they thrive on uh, healthy negotiation. Let's just put it like what somebody who's maybe not ready for it would think that it's like aggressive, right? But it's just like a very alpha culture where it's like you have to really stand up for yourself. You have to really have conviction in your words, and if you don't, you'll get steamrolled, right?
Right.
And so it really just made me choose and remove all the gray area in my life in terms of I believe this or I believe that, but there's no in between. And so just that conviction, I think a lot of, when you're talking about aspiring founders and entrepreneurs, that conviction is what people sense, and that's what they trust, even if they don't agree with you. So I would say just like focus everything you got on conviction, whether it's, going to the gym, getting stronger, feeling better, looking better, like, boosting your testosterone, whatever you have to do to like have that level of conviction. I think that's going to service you best, because all of your decisions that you make from there, from a place of power, it's just going to be better decision making.
I think that's one of the main reasons why I've decided to focus on Elevate Your Voice, the online classes that I have, because running for governor for 2 years, I had the opportunity to travel the entire state, and I spoke with so many business owners, so many aspiring entrepreneurs, and you'll be surprised that so many business owners, they were telling me that they're struggling and they want to be successful. But when I asked them a basic question in regards to what is their business, who they are, what do they do, what's their service and product, they couldn't articulate to me what that was. And in this day and age where the personal brand is so important, like those are areas of need. And so that's why I've been really on top of that. And I'm only saying that because you said that, you felt like you weren't as cool as you were. So we're always cool, but just understand that there's different levels. I walk in certain rooms, being this, former political candidate, I'm going there to sit down, grab a pen and pad and learn like everyone else. So and I just did that this weekend at a mastermind with Roger Rojas, who works with Dan Fleischman. So
Yeah, I was going to say it's Dan's buddy, right?
I'm always willing to go soak it up. And yeah, we know certain things already. We've had certain successes monetarily or just in general. but I've always positioned myself to be a student. And when I do that, as a byproduct of that, other great things are favored. I get favored just from that particular action. So that strength is what's going to build you up as well too. So it's just leveling you up. So I'm glad you're around that type of energy. Sometimes people think I'm a little aggressive, and my wife always like to speak when she's around me because she was like, I don't like how you say it to people, but I'm just very assertive. I know who I am. I know what I want, and I know what I want to accomplish. So I can appreciate that environment. So I'm glad that you are checking that ego at the door, and it's going to allow you to thrive in ways like you've never thrived before. I can already sense it for you. So I'm happy for you. Congratulations. So let's get down to the root of it. What is the Sigma Society? What is it?
So Sigma Society is a a platform for men to enhance their essentially their masculinity, right? It helps them with their dating, their mindset, their uh, wealth. It's health, wealth, and relationships, right? So it's teaching guys to really learn that conviction that I'm talking about, but it's from a very different vantage point. From Dan's vantage point, he's always in this like mindset of his motto is stop chasing and start choosing.
Mm,
So it's just all about this power frame, this stronger mindset. And so the program itself for Sigma Society, he has a bunch of training videos, has a community, a private community, a society, like an online community where guys can connect, and then he has a bunch of coaches in there who work to uplift the guys. And then he also hosts like in-person experiences and stuff like that. Like he's got a ranch in Vegas where we've had some guys out, done pretty cool experiences, everything from like the armory with tons of guns in it to paintball to the 4x4 mountain biking, all that shit. So
yeah.
it's a really cool experience.
So I want to walk it back a little bit. During the intro, in my mind, sometimes you have it all planned out how you're going to do it, but once you get on it, you get excited, the bright lights is on. But I do want to go back to how my introduction of you was, because I was going to say devoted husband. Your wife is Lex. Her name is Lex, right? And
Mm-hmm.
also recently new father of poet Adele Maxim, correct? And you were
Yep.
very surprised that I remember June 15th, 1:22 p.m.,
You
right?
remembered it
And,
exactly.
and and the reason why, of course I do my research or whatever, but when I first saw that back then, when you first posted, I looked at that post today and I saw that I put congratulations. Every time I see that of a new parent specifically, I get so overjoyed for those individuals, but also like, man, it's about to be wild, right? So given the fact that you had these 12-hour days, how has that transition been with, raising your new daughter?
I'll just say it very dialed in. There's no room for error whatsoever. I wake up at 6. I'm at the gym by 7. I'm at my desk by 8, 8:30, and then I work from 8 until 8 or 8 until 7. I set that clear boundary with my wife. I said, hey, I'm gonna have to work until 7 every night, and that's just that. And so setting that expectation, being forward about that definitely helped. But at the same time, while I was preparing to have the baby, I did what I called Operation Baby Daddy about 3 months before I before I had the baby. I journaled all the different activities I do at my companies and what responsibilities I have. And then I asked myself, what would I have to do if I wanted to delegate these or automate them? And so then I went through one by one. Some of it was hiring salespeople. Some of it was creating training materials for my team. Some of it was simply blocking off time and making sure that my colleagues and everybody respected that I was going to be a father. And that plan, of the few plans that do pan out, that one panned out well. And I got to take time off, connect with my daughter. I mean, even just before this call, I was having a hard day. Like we got a big launch coming up, so I'm just like grinding. And right before this, I stopped and saw my daughter, and like all the stress and angst of like the pressure at work just melted away. And so then I came into this conversation just feeling really, really good. And so I just want to acknowledge like what a blessing having a baby is, the opportunity that God's given me to have a daughter. I just feel very blessed. She's healthy. Like those things are not always there, right? And then I look at somebody like yourself who has kids who are a little bit more grown up, and I'm like, I really respect that because it's like there you have to go through a lot of hard phases to get there. And yeah, I'm super grateful to God. I've got a new lease on life in terms of inspiration and love and passion in my life. And the baby is so disarming for a man because it's like you think you're cool, you think you're tough, you think you're productive, whatever. And then you meet this harmless little baby, and she's just wants to love you. She just wants to connect with you. You know, I say hi to her, and she looks at me and blushes. It's really cute. I didn't even know to expect that. You know, so I think most, you know, glory goes to God in the sense that like that's the best of any success I could say that's out there, at least that I've experienced.
It's so funny that you just said that because at the end of my introduction, out of all the cool things I was announcing you as, I was going to say that last line trumps all those other things that you've done.
It really does. I mean, like I've been through so many twists and turns in my career. You know, I've lived in Europe. I worked in corporate for years. I was at like a, you know, suit and tie type of job in Philly, you know, and I was, you know, these board meetings, all of this hot shot shit. I thought it was cool. And then like, you know, went to the dirt of being a founder and having these huge ups and downs, like, you know, pitching Kevin Hart, getting him to agree to invest, and then that falling apart, and then going to another, you know, business, working with TikTok. So all of these like twists and turns and all these rewarding moments, you know, whenever you have a big windfall financially, or whenever you do something that's like a big accomplishment, it feels great, but nothing feels quite like having a daughter. It's definitely the top.
No, I agree. It's definitely a mindset shift and also a spiritual shift as well when it happens. You know, with me, I always tell people like my energy comes from my sons on how they look at me. And so I can't be a hypocrite. I have to be that superhero that I see how they
You
look at,
have to be the taste of you.
you know, and so that's what continues to drive me over and over again. I wanna touch on some of the proponents that are in a Sigma society, right? When you talk about just building men, that's something that's I think it's a necessity. I think it's something that's necessary in this day and age. Everything I do, just like with this podcast, there's a faith-based undertone to it, right? That's why it's inspirational, aspirational, and motivational. It's meant to encourage, uplift, and inspire people. How important is it for you, even if it's for a small period of time, mindset-wise, to tap into your fitness?
Look, I think that like no guy can really like, at least I couldn't, like I can't work like 10, 12 hour days unless I've worked out. Like it's a piece of the puzzle. If you want to like be able to sleep well at night, you need to wear your body out during the day. If you want to have, or for me at least, if I want to have good energy, like for example, today I didn't go to the gym. I did yoga before work and I didn't feel as good. But the days where I go to the gym and I do a cold shower after, I feel really good. And it just puts me on this like long, energetic run where I don't get worn out till, you know, because it's not natural for somebody to work, you know, 7 to 7 or 8 to 7 every night. It's too much on the human body. So, but you have to, the level of hustle and accomplishment and success that you want to have, you have to balance that with fitness and restoration and stuff like that. So I also have a podcast that's called Zen Business, and that's, you know, it's all about the restorative process of like entrepreneurs who meditate, who have a spiritual connection, things like that, because I believe that's the fuel that keeps you going. And I only think that people get burned out if they're just off purpose.
And would you give the advice to anyone that's striving to be successful to focus on um, more so their purpose and passion, or something that's going to, if they've, you know, some people have successes randomly in certain areas, right? What would be your advice if someone is tug of war? Because I mean, I'm gonna give you more context. I was speaking to someone a few weeks ago, and he was just telling me that he doesn't want to work a 9 to 5, but yet as he explained his story, John, he's struggling. He's not making any money, right? And I just recently wrote a new book that's due to come out in Christmas. It's
Nice.
called Use Everybody. And it seems like a negative connotation, but it's really positivity in regards to what we truly use, and what we truly do. And what I mean by that is, you know, he went and worked. I told him to, you know, FedEx, UPS, and Target, all these different places are hiring. And, you know, anyone can pretty much get a job there. It's not to negate who you are, but I said, you need gas money. You know, you need to be able to go to these meetups. So you need to be able to feed yourself versus sitting here saying you're struggling. Because the thing that I can't do is if I give you a couple bucks, the next week you're going to come back and you're going to need a couple bucks again. So I'd rather be the person to tell you no, but also point you in a direction to go and get something that's going to help you sustain the entrepreneurial journey that you have as well. That was 2, 3 weeks ago. Fast forward now, he just got his first check He get his first check
Yeah.
tomorrow on Friday, and he just sent me this long text message. It's like, you were right. Talk about that. Sometimes people just want to be in the trenches and just my purpose, my passion, but shouldn't there be, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what do you think about the balance aspect of it when you're going after your dreams and goals?
So I was talking to a friend yesterday. I believe that most businesses are pretty boring once you're in the actual thick of it. Like the actual process of running a business is pretty similar no matter what business you do, in the sense that you're taking sales calls, you're executing on it, you're building product, you're doing your services, whatever. So don't get too caught up on a passion project, because oftentimes like the passion will get sucked out of that project when the going gets tough and you have to make money off of it. So I, somebody recently said, like, I don't like to give advice, and I kind of don't like to give advice either, but I can share from my personal experience. And my personal experience is that in the earlier parts of your career, especially if you're an entrepreneur, focus on making money. And then when you learn to do business and make money, then you can pursue something that's a little bit more, uh, let's just say altruistic or like purpose driven. Because trying to make a purpose driven business like I did the first time, I was so focused on the mission, but I wasn't focused on making money. And it eventually ate me alive. And then I hated the company by the end of it. Whereas after I ran a cash flow business, specifically, like if you're doing services, like there's a lot of upside with services. You get a big client, Fortune 500 client, something like that. You could be bringing in six figures a month. So it's a lot easier to grow a business like that if you're willing to just do the work. So I encourage people, if they want to become an entrepreneur, do something that's going to get you cash fast and learn the work ethic and the pace and everything that you need to do to like start printing money off of yourself, and then take that experience and that capital, and then you can invest in something that's a little bit more purpose driven. So I think that's why you'll see a lot of entrepreneurs do a lot more charity and altruistic stuff in the later parts of their career, because they want to build up the wealth, influence, and power to actually make an impact. And that's the same belief that I have, is I want to build my wealth, impact, and influence now so that I can have a bigger impact later. Whereas if I just went and started doing mission work or started doing charity or volunteering on Skid Row, I'd be helping people in a one-to-one way. But if I got $1 million in the bank and I want to deploy $100,000, I could, impact 100,000 people, right? If I were to donate to a charity that gives people meals in Africa or something like that. So you can just have a lot bigger impact once you have some power, some prowess, some reputation. So I definitely encourage guys to just go out and start putting in the work and start making some money. It's a good feedback loop. You'll figure out whether you're generating value or you're not, and then that'll help you sustain, develop the business and take it in the direction that's going to ultimately make you enough of a nest egg that you can like take a step back and think about it and reflect, and then say, okay, what impact do I want to have here?
That's such a great explanation. What would you say your favorite, you can give me a couple of them, but what would you say is your favorite book thus far that's been instrumental? There's something that you actually go back to and refer to? Because there are certain books I've read like 50 times.
Yeah, I mean, shit, that's a good question. I haven't thought about my favorite book in a while. I got two bookshelves here. Shit, dude. There's a whole bunch of books that changed my life.
But
First one that changed my life
how
was,
important is reading though? A lot of people don't really understand how important it is because of what it does for you, like receiving that information. I love reading.
yeah, I think actually, from my perspective, what's been the most impactful for me with reading is that it actually makes you sit down and shut up and actually listen. So that's just a healthy process. We're so used to like talking and bragging and all these other things. When you sit down and you just read, it's just you and the book. It's you and your self-control. How long can you stay focused? How much information can you intake? And if you understand like the value of the information that you're getting, you could get somebody's life work for $15, right? If you want to learn how to do webinars, for example, I read a book on webinars, One to Many, by Jason, what's his last name? One to Many, Jason Fladland. Anyway, that book was really good. It really taught me about making digital marketing funnels and webinars. I got his whole life experience for like $20 in a few hours of my time. If I had gone to his mastermind, he charges like $10 to $100,000 for his mastermind. So I've just downloaded all the same knowledge and information for $15. So I think
Right.
like if you want to hack to get like a massive ROI on your time, reading is it, at least in the early part of your career. I encourage guys to like just develop the habit of reading, because first of all, it makes you intellectual. It gives you a great lexicon. It gives you a lot of, you learn to develop your position. Like you either agree with stuff or you don't agree with stuff. It really helps you solidify who you are. But yeah, so the book list, I would say $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozy. That's probably the most impactful one recently. 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. Um, The Alchemist by what's his name? Pablo
Coelho.
Coelho. Yeah, he's got a bunch of good books.
Yeah, I have all of them.
Yeah, that's a great series. I love the spiritual books. I'm very spiritual myself, so I find that stuff to be very interesting. But I would definitely say if you're an entrepreneur, read the 4 Hour Work Week. That's always a great starting point. $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozy, One to Many by Jason Fladlin if you're a digital marketer. And yeah, I mean, there's so many books. Oh, also the Almanac by Naval Ravikant. Definitely recommend that every guy reads that because that's a first principles book. It really teaches you to like understand what your first principles are and to approach life from a first principles perspective so that you're not making whimsical decisions. You're doing it based on fundamentals. And he also like the whole book is designed around getting leverage, right? He's like one of the most masterful people when it comes to designing leverage, meaning you put in 1 unit and you get 10 units out rather than 1 unit of effort, you get 1 unit out. So for guys who want to like start thinking more strategically, that book's really good.
At your age now, thinking of your 17-year-old self, what would you tell your 17-year-old self now if you had the opportunity?
I would say don't spend 100 grand on a master's degree. I would say start your business when you're 18. I think that'd be a good age, while you're in college or just out of high school. Start the business then so you can scrape your knees when you still got some like shielding and coverage from either your family or from your student, loans or whatever else. It's a good time to scrape your knees and to get that initial practice. And I just wish I had started earlier. I
Yeah.
became an entrepreneur when I was 27. So, I've been in that game for 10 years now. I'm 37 now. So I would have had 17 years in that game if I had just started a little sooner.
Now, I guess lastly, do you value mentors?
I think like it goes without saying, like mentors are, it's just such a critical piece of the puzzle. Like as a guy, if you're not willing to take on a mentor, I think that your ego is in the way. Like I think you aren't ready to learn. That's one of my weaknesses. I felt that I didn't take on enough mentors and I paid for all kinds of coaching and mentors and consultants and stuff. And so even at one point, I direct messaged old retired guys on LinkedIn who were in a similar industry, and I was just looking for mentors. I never actually got one, but I think that practice of just going to your elders and taking the knowledge passed down that they have to offer, it's altruistic on their part. They'll feel good, and for you, it's like it's a hack. You get their whole life experience for $0. Go intern for free, go be their assistant, do what you got to do, and so yeah, I say one thing with mentors is like let's just say Major becomes your mentor, right? Like you're gonna be in his world now. He's gonna talk about you with his friends. He's gonna potentially invite you out to events. You're gonna meet his constituents and his friends, and it's just a stepping stone for networking too. So
Right.
your mentors are a great avenue, especially if you inspire them, right? Like if you're taking their advice and you're making a change, they're going to feel really inspired when they see you activating the advice that you gave them. So it's very rewarding for both sides, and then it just opens these doors networking wise.
I really appreciate that response, and I appreciate you for being on the show as well, man. I don't want to hold you up. I know you've had a long day, but we definitely have to do this again in person. Obviously, this is the first batch of podcast shows that we're doing. We're going to elevate to the physical, remote ones. We've done one so far, but I want to do a lot more of them. But I appreciate you for coming
Come
on.
by next time you're in LA. Love to
Huh?
host you. So come by here next time you're in LA. I'd love to host you. We can record a show in my studio.
Yeah, I'm with it. Sign me up. Let's do it. Let's coordinate that. I want to make that happen. I want to participate. I want to support however I can. But thank you for coming on to the show. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your time. This has been another Majoravation podcast where we talk about all things inspirational, aspirational, and motivational. And as always, I brought you another amazing guest. Make sure to hit him up. All this information will be in the link. You have anything else to say to people? We have a minute and 30 seconds.
Just thank God every day.
Amen to that. Thank you so much for joining me, John. Appreciate you.